workers at a Manhattan McDonald's and also workers at a Chicago Dunkin' Donuts both went out and strike in a strike in protest yesterday due to the unsafe working conditions caused by the heat. Both stores suffered from broken air conditioning units, and neither of the businesses felt it was imperative upon them to fix the situation immediately. So you've got employees working in stores that are dealing in food service, so they have the heat of the grill, the heat of the ovens, pumping and pumping and pumping in this little tiny shop that's becoming a hot box. So you've got the heat outside, the heat inside, and you've got workers that end up passing out from dizziness and exhaustion, and you've got workers going to the bathroom and vomiting, and they can't work. They can't work in these conditions. You've got workers going to the hospital. So finally, workers at McDonald's at around 10 a.m. walked out of the store. They said that a coworker fainted from the heat and had to be wheeled to an ambulance by paramedics. One of the workers, Dilla, alleged that when the worker, who had repeatedly said that she didn't feel well, went downstairs to vomit in the bathroom, a manager followed her to the bathroom and ordered her to go back to work. She was laying down on some chairs and vomiting when she fell and fainted, and her eyes were rolling back in her head, and that's when they said enough is enough, and they walked out of the store and said we can't work under these conditions. So,
America.
I mean, what do you think about that? We're dealing with McDonald's here, and I'm focusing on the McDonald's aspect. They're one of the most profitable, I think they might be the single most profitable fast food corporation in the country. And yet they can't afford to get their air conditioning fixed and have it running in a shop that is filled with grills and boiling oil and ovens, and so that
I just want to point out that this is a franchise. He's that the owner of this McDonald's is a franchisor. So
right.
The corporation doesn't have a lot of control over that particular franchise, but
right.
nonetheless, and I want to point this out because I'm not defending this McDonald's franchise. I'm not defending McDonald's whatsoever. They have specific rules for franchisees
right.
on how they treat their employees.
Right.
And this should break all of these rules.
Right. Although it's not directly tied to the global corporation that is McDonald's, the corporation remains responsible for the working conditions of the McDonald's stores.
That's right.
And they and I don't know if you guys have worked in food service. I unfortunately have. Their franchise, you get a visitor from corporate every once in a while, and he's supposed to inspect that you're using the machines are right in the franchise and all that stuff. And if the air conditioner was broken for like 9 years in this case, then that guy didn't do his job. So corporate is responsible in this case.
Well, it was broken on and off for 9 years. When I had read the story, they had tried fixing it probably a week before the heat wave, and then of course right after they fixed it, it failed in about the next week. So it was pretty much useless. They should have replaced that unit instead of just fixing it.
The franchise can afford, I mean, it is still making a ridiculous amount of money that the franchise can afford to replace the air conditioning unit completely. It's a case of negligence and a case of being very stingy and cheap and not wanting to take responsibility for the situation.
Well, we've seen a lot of
stingy and cheapness.
But the thing is, I've worked in a place where the air conditioner broke, right? And for like a day, you know what? Suck it up, go to work. You know what I mean? But you can't, like, in a heat wave and, like, it's happening all the time. Like, there's a point where it's like they don't give a fuck about you, and that's when it gets ridiculous, right? And I was fortunate enough that the franchise owner at the place I worked at, which wasn't McDonald's, was actually, like, they had it fixed, and I think it was in a couple of hours they got it fixed because they know it sucks to work on the grill and, like, all that nonsense. So, like,
absolutely.
That's a much better franchise owner than this guy.
Don't eat at that facility. This is the guy who wanted these people to work in intolerable conditions. We're sweating all over your food. It wasn't that sanitary.
And keep in mind, this was only at 10 a.m. in the morning. It was still morning, and people were already, vomiting and suffering from heat strokes and passing out. So, I mean, imagine working all day in that environment at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it's at its hottest, and in Manhattan, the temperatures have just been
this
ridiculous.
isn't Manhattan.
And these people will be like, oh, just suck it up, drink some water, you'll be fine. You realize water doesn't stop heat stroke.
Right.
Right.
And the thing is,
dehydration, not heat stroke.
The thing is, if you're a customer, like, what do you like? Like, I don't go in, like, I don't go to the movies if the air conditioner's not there and it's as hot as it is outside. Like, if you're a customer and you see like a woman throwing up while she's making your food and then pass out, are you gonna be like, yeah, I'll have the number 4?
Yeah, but that was in the back, so the customers couldn't see any of that.
Yeah, but you could see, like, if there's no air conditioner in McDonald's, right? You're hot.
In the back, in the kitchen, in the back.
But I'm saying, but you could see
air conditioner for the people, for the customers.
Oh, that's. But I'm saying you should be able to see the workers, because even if you're at the counter, like, the heat from back there is ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
you should be able to see that these guys are like sweating buckets. What they do, buy dark uniforms or something? Like, it's like, oh, that's a good solution. You can't see the sweat through them. Like, this is nuts.
You're right. It absolutely is nuts. I don't understand why anybody would want to eat there. With the temperatures that high, and it's a lot of the same concerns. I don't want people sweating on my food.
And
true.
And to be a little fair, and I'm not, like I said, the owner's totally guilty. Like, those air conditioning units are expensive because they have to be so big and powerful and all that. But you got to spend the money. You can't pass that. You shouldn't be able to pass a health inspection if your employees are sweating over there. Like, you can't. You know you're gonna get sued when something bad happens. Like, people could have died in. Imagine you're the franchise owner of the McDonald's that somebody died in your kitchen. Like, what are you thinking? Like, you gotta. It's to me, like, some people are just ridiculous.
Right, yeah, and at 10 in the morning, even at 10 in the morning, temperatures within the store felt over 100 degrees. 105 and over was.
I believe it got to about 110 back in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the court of public opinion, even after the fact, no one should ever eat at that store.
I agree.
Well, look, yeah. McDonald's is a terrible employer to begin with. You know, they started paying their workers with debit cards, with Chase debit cards, right? That in order to get your money out, we got to pay fees.
But they changed that system. They got such an ugly response from that they actually changed their policy and switched back to the old way of doing things.
That's good, but they still have that ridiculous budget.
Yes, I mean, McDonald's as a corporation is just evil and greedy and
delicious.
McDonald's as a franchise is also obviously often very negligent and inconsiderate of their workers and their customers. So don't eat at McDonald's. I mean, it's unhealthy anyway. It's not even really food. It's just corn syrup and fried fat.
And the thing is I don't want to necessarily hit a whole bunch of franchise owners, right? Because this is one guy that we know of.
This is one guy.
I'm saying there's probably a bunch of other stories of stuff like this, but it's not all of them. But you have to understand that even though they're individually they're owned by the franchise owner is essentially a customer of corporate. He has to buy everything from McDonald's. It's just the McDonald's can't manage every individual store, so he is an extension of corporate. And corporate, when they come down, they're ridiculous. If you put the pickles and the cheese in the wrong order, then you could get fired when the corporate guy's there. And you're telling me the air conditioner and all these guys are sweating? He's like, nah, I'll let it go.
Maybe that's when they actually had fixed it for a week.